my sheltered heart. Here is the quiet paradox hiding at the center of your life, one that most people never stop long enough to examine. Everything you have been building your sense of self upon, the people who affirm you, the relationships that tell you that you belong, the voices that confirm your worth on the days when you cannot quite confirm it yourself, all of it is built on structures that can shift. And meanwhile, the one thing that has never moved, never required anything from you before offering itself completely, the one foundation that was already present before any human hand reached toward you, that is what you have spent the least time standing on. Let me go further into what this looks like in the actual experience of a day. Not the theory of anchored living, but the practice of it. What does it mean, practically, to live from the foundation outward rather than toward it from the outside? It means waking into a day and carrying from the first moment of consciousness an orientation that is not dependent on how the day presents itself. Most people wake into the world and immediately begin reading the environment for signals about how the day is going to feel. Is there a message waiting? Is the person I care about in a good mood? Does the first report from outside my inner world match my hope for how things are going? And from those first signals, the weather within you begins to take its shape. If the signals are warm, the soul is warm. If the signals are cool or absent, something deep inside begins its own quiet form of contraction. Anchored living does not eliminate this responsiveness. You are human, not stone, and the people and conditions around you will always have weather of their own that affects yours. But in anchored living, the responsiveness is not final. There is a baseline that the signals cannot erase, a steadiness that returns to itself no matter what the reading from the outside produces. That baseline is not manufactured by discipline or willpower. It is the felt reality of a soul that has stopped trying to produce its own stability and has simply rested into the stability that was already present. Daily, practical, ordinary life is where anchored living actually takes shape, not in exceptional spiritual moments or dramatic encounters, but in the accumulated texture of how a person moves through an ordinary day, in how the morning begins before the day has defined itself with its demands, in whether you bring the first moments of your awareness to me, not as a lengthy ritual, but as the actual acknowledgement of what is true before anything else is considered. What is true is this: I am here. You are held. What I am does not change with your performance or your feelings or the specific tone of what this day brings. That acknowledgement, practiced consistently over time, is a reorientation of the interior compass toward actual north. Old patterns do not disappear in the first week of new living. The pull toward identity maintenance through relational monitoring remains present because it has been practiced a long time. But a compass, when you keep returning it to actual north, begins to correct more quickly. Each small act of returning accumulates. Gradually, the default shifts. Not toward indifference about connection, but toward connection carried from a different inner posture, from the deep place outward, rather than toward it from the outside. When the soul stops searching and simply rests, a particular quality of deep quiet arrives, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of what has been settled. A room that stops needing to be rearranged because everything in it is already in the right place. A person who has arrived at that depth of quiet does not stop engaging with the world, does not become unavailable to the people around them. What changes is the register from which they engage, moving from the register of need, the quiet desperation that underlies so much of what passes for sociability, the unspoken hunger behind the smile, to the register of gift, having something to give rather than needing to extract, a fullness that is not self-generated but received. And what flows from that fullness into the people nearby is qualitatively different from what flows from a soul that has been running on insufficient supply. Giving from fullness is generous without the aftertaste of sacrifice. It is open rather than cautious. It can be absorbed by others without leaving the giver depleted. What I am for you is not neutral or distant. My care is warm, active, moving. It speaks when you are quiet enough to hear it. It notices things about you that you have never pointed out to anyone. The way you light up when you encounter beauty, the specific texture of your humor when you are at ease, what catches in your throat when kindness arrives from an unexpected direction. Not a file being maintained, a presence continuously attending, and present attending is not passive. Every person who ever loved you incompletely, every relationship that offered something real and then could not sustain it. I do not look at those as failures you caused by being insufficiently lovable. I hold the grief of each one alongside you, not above it, not at a safe distance from the specific texture of what each loss cost you. Every loss in your relational history has shaped you. Some of what it shaped is beautiful, a depth of empathy, a depth of presence with people in pain, an ability to sit with someone else's grief without rushing them toward the exit. Some of what it shaped is more complicated, the reflexive guardedness, the delayed trust, the habit of reading for signals of withdrawal before they have actually arrived, the part of you that steels itself when things seem to be going well, because experience has taught a certain caution. Both the beautiful shapings and the complicated ones are part of who you are now, and I work with all of it. Nothing in your interior life is too tangled for me to move through. Nothing in your history is too heavy for what undergirds you. Before any loss you have experienced, before any fracture in the architecture of your relational world, before the first time someone chose to step back from you, before the first friendship that thinned, before the first time care turned out to be less than what you had trusted it to be, what was laid beneath you was already there, already permanent, already complete, not placed as a remedy after the heartbreaks arrived, as a divine afterthought designed to comfort the wounded. There first. You were held before you were hurt. What I am is older than the hurt, and larger than all of it combined. You have been constructing your interior life on scaffolding while the bedrock sat untouched beneath your feet, and what I want to invite you into is not a harder effort or a more intense belief or a better performed version of faith. The invitation is simpler than that, and it goes further than anything effort could reach. Stop building on the scaffolding and come down to what is unmovable, because the bedrock was laid before the first heartbreak, before any relationship formed around you, before anyone spoke the first word that told you whether you were valued or overlooked, before you had ever tasted the specific ache of being loved incompletely. My nature does not have a before, only and always. And with the patience that belongs to the eternal, I have been waiting for you to feel the solidity of what is already beneath you. Let me begin with the thing you already know, but may not have fully looked at directly. Part of you has been leaning on what leans. Every person in your life who has meant the most to you, the ones whose approval carried the most weight in the interior accounting of your worth, the ones whose closeness felt like evidence that you were going to be okay, they are fragile, not because they are inadequate people, not because they have failed you entirely, but because they are human, and human beings are built for the same incompleteness you carry. Each of them has their own shifting seasons of attention and availability. Each has their own inner noise that sometimes drowns out the quiet of what you need from them. People love imperfectly, not because they do not love sincerely, but because sincerity and sufficiency are not the same thing. No amount of genuine human affection can meet the depth of what a soul requires at its most essential level. You have been trying to quench a specific kind of thirst at a well that simply does not run that deep. And the repeated experience of going to that well and finding it lower than you needed, or dry altogether in seasons when it was drawn from too often, has produced in you a distinct kind of weariness, a relational weariness, exhaustion with the labor of sustaining your sense of worth through the fluctuating supply of other people's regard. Consider what that weariness actually feels like, not in the abstract, in the specific bodily, inward way it shows up in a life. Notice the version that surfaces when a friendship you relied on gradually thins without explanation, the distance growing in increments too small to address directly, but large enough to register in the places where belonging lives. Notice the version that arrives when someone who once pursued your company stops pursuing it, and the silence they leave behind is louder than any rejection spoken plainly, because at least a spoken rejection gives you something to respond to, while the slow withdrawal gives you only questions and the muffled ache of not knowing what to do with them. Notice the version that moves through you after a romantic relationship ends, not always in a dramatic fracture, but sometimes in the long, slow exhale of two people who have quietly stopped building toward the same thing, until one day, what exists between you is mostly the memory of what it was, rather than the substance of what it is. In all of these, a common injury hides underneath the surface loss. Not only that, a specific relationship changed, but that the structure you had built on top of that relationship, the sense of yourself that you had anchored to their continued presence, shifted with it. And discovering that your interior ground was organized around something external, something capable of moving, is one of the most disorienting revelations available to a human heart. There is a layer to that disorientation worth staying with a little longer. When external validation functions as your identity, each relational loss is not just a loss of the person or the connection. It is a partial loss of yourself, because the self that had been assembled from their presence has no stable form without it. You find yourself in the strange position of not knowing quite who you are in the absence of the person who had been reflecting you back to yourself. Not knowing what you like, what you want, what you believe about your own worth, when the one who had been answering those questions by their regard for you is no longer in the room. This is why the end of significant relationships is so often experienced not only as grief but as a kind of identity dizziness, the disorientation of someone who has lost their footing and cannot quite find the floor. And the reaching that follows, the urgent, sometimes frantic reaching toward new connections to re-establish the sense of self that the departed relationship had been maintaining. That reaching makes perfect sense when you understand that what is being sought is not merely companionship but orientation, not merely affection but the place to stand. You were not wrong to love those people, not foolish to want closeness with them. Desiring human connection is not a spiritual deficit. It is one of the most beautiful things in you, written there by the same hand that wrote everything else. But desiring connection and building your identity on the shifting sands of what connection provides are two different things. One is the longing I placed in you, the other is the misrouting of that longing toward a source that cannot bear its full weight. And I am not correcting the longing, I am inviting it to find its actual object, not instead of human relationship, but beneath it. Under everything anyone has ever offered you, under every version of belonging you have experienced, under every moment of being seen and known and valued, there has been something beneath you that none of those moments created and none of their endings could destroy. Before any of it, after all of it, and right now, in this moment, under you. What does it mean that I loved you before any human being did? Not merely in the chronological sense, though that is true, and not only in the abstract theological sense of an eternal God whose nature precedes all things, though that is also true. Practically, in the texture of your actual interior life, it means this: there is no version of you that has ever been unloved, not the version that existed before anyone else formed an opinion of you, not the version that came into being during the seasons when you felt most invisible, not the version that survived the heartbreaks and arrived on the other side changed by them, not the version reading these words right now, carrying whatever combination of weariness and hope belongs to this exact season. Every version of you that has ever existed has existed inside my regard for you. You have never been outside of it, not even when it felt like the lights had gone out and no one was coming. Abandonment, when it comes as a feeling, is real in the sense that feelings are always real, but feelings are not always accurate reporters of spiritual reality. Feeling left was not a report about what I was doing. It was a report about the scaffolding. When that temporary structure shifts, the structure-dependent feeling shifts with it. What I am does not shift. Neither does what is built on me. The bedrock was laid before the first heartbreak. Now let me speak about something deeper than the question of whether you are loved. A question about who you are before anyone has a chance to answer it for you. Prior to social construction, prior to the accumulated verdict of every relationship you have moved through, prior to the identity that formed in response to how you were treated at 8, at 16, at 24, under the adaptive self that learned to be what environments required, under the defended self that learned not to want what kept being withheld, under the performing self that discovered which version of you received the warmest response and gradually defaulted to presenting that version. Under all of it, there is a self I know, by a name I gave it before the world had a chance to name it anything else. A self that does not need to be constructed, does not need to be earned or defended or proved. It was given before giving was required, not waiting to be loved into existence, already existing fully in the place where I see you. Consider what it means to be made in my image, not a resemblance that is general and imprecise, a specific imprint. Who I am was placed in who you are with care and intention, not replicated with the diminishing faithfulness of a copy, but placed directly in the original, in the actual substance of your deep life. Every capacity you carry to move toward others, to pursue what is true, to grieve when kindness is absent from a place it should be. These did not emerge from nowhere. They are the signature of the divine pressed into the singular clay of your unique life. You are not trying to become something. Already you are something. What I shaped is not a project awaiting completion. It is a creation complete in my sight from the moment I breathed it into being. And no relational verdict, however many times it was repeated, however early it arrived, however much authority it seemed to carry, has revised what I made. Worth does not originate in what others see in you. It originates in what I placed in you before anyone else arrived to form an opinion. And the opinions that have attached themselves to you over the course of your life, some generous, some withholding, some accurate, and some entirely wrong, some spoken with care, and some spoken by people too occupied with their own damage to see you clearly, none of those opinions altered what I placed. not the affirming ones which felt like confirmation, but were not the original source, not the wounding ones which felt like definition, but were never granted that authority. No assessment can revise what I declared. Moving from locating your worth in what others say to locating it in what I made is not a movement from neediness to pride. It is a movement from scaffolding to what does not shift, from the unstable to the immovable. Let me speak also about the courage it takes to stop searching, because that is what is actually being asked of you here, and I do not want to understate it. Stopping the search is not a passive thing. It looks passive from the outside. It looks like simply sitting still, like accepting rather than pursuing, like releasing rather than striving. But from the inside, for a person who has organized their sense of safety around the work of pursuing belonging, stopping the search is an act of radical trust. It is the decision to believe that what you have been searching for is not in the next relationship or the improved version of the current one or the finally repaired version of the one that broke. It is the decision to stop looking in the direction you have been looking and turn in a different direction entirely, toward what is already present, toward what is already beneath you, toward the foundation that was never going to be found in the places you were searching. Not because those places are bad, but because that is simply not where foundations live. Foundations are not found in other people. They are found in the one who laid them before any other person arrived. The courage of this turning is not generated once and then permanent. It is renewed daily, sometimes hourly. Because the old patterns have deep grooves, and the habit of looking outward for what can only be found inward, or rather underneath, is a habit of long standing. On the days when the turning is easy, receive that ease as a gift. On the days when the turning is hard, when the pull toward the old search is strong, and what holds you feels abstract rather than real, do not treat the difficulty as evidence that the turning failed. Treat it as the ordinary interior weather of a person who is in the middle of a genuine reorientation. Reorientation takes time. Compasses correct gradually, and every moment of choosing to return to the actual north, however halting, however imperfect, is a moment of real movement in the right direction. Here is one more thing about the days when the foundation is hard to feel. Those days are not evidence that it disappeared. Fog does not dissolve the mountain beneath it. Heavy clouds do not remove the floor from the valley. What obscures the felt awareness of the bedrock is not the absence of what holds you. It is the presence of other things: grief, noise, distraction, the accumulated weight of a difficult season that is closer to the surface of your awareness at that moment. And the practice of returning to what is beneath you on the days when you cannot feel it is not a futile act. It is precisely the act that, over the long accumulation of a life, forms the capacity for a settled spirit. Every return, however dry and however unaccompanied by felt experience, is a choosing of the actual. And the actual, chosen consistently, eventually becomes the experienced, not because you earned it through the choosing, but because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates availability, and availability is what transforms a theological truth into a lived one. There is a phrase I need to speak over you as I bring this word toward its close, and I want it to go deeper than the level of information, deeper than the layer where you absorb what you hear and catalog it alongside what you already know. I want it to reach the place where believing actually lives, because the gap between knowing and believing is real, and it is where most of the interior work of a lifetime happens. Knowing that you are held and believing it in the way that changes how you walk. These are not the same thing. Knowing occupies a shelf in the mind. Believing occupies the body. It changes your posture, your pace, the way your hands move, the quality of your eye contact, the register in which you enter a room. Believing that you are held at the structural level reorganizes everything that receives weight. What you build on, what you lean on, what you reach for when everything feels uncertain. And the path from knowing to believing is not a path traveled by acquiring more information. It is traveled by returning again and again and again to what is true, by practicing the acknowledgement of what is beneath you, by letting the weight actually shift from the temporary framework to what is real in the ordinary moments of an ordinary day, until the new location of the weight becomes familiar, and familiar becomes natural, and natural becomes home. You are being invited home, not to a location, to a way of being, to the spaciousness within that belongs to a person who is no longer organized around the question of whether they will be loved, because that question has already been answered permanently from outside the range of anything circumstance can revise. You are loved, not because you performed it, not because you earned it in the right season or held the right position in the life of the right person. Not because you believe it perfectly or live it out without failure, because of who I am, and because I made you, and because what I make, I hold, and what I hold, I do not abandon. That is the bedrock. That is what was laid before the first heartbreak. That is what will hold you through every one that comes after. And I want you to know what that holding actually feels like from the inside, because words about it can remain at the level of concept and never become the lived experience they are pointing toward. Being held at the structural level, at the level of the foundation, does not feel like being prevented from feeling things. It does not insulate you from grief or seal you off from the ordinary difficulties of a human life. What it feels like, when it is genuinely known rather than merely believed, is more like this: a steadiness beneath the fluctuation, a solidity that is present whether or not you are attending to it, a place at the core that does not move when other interior places are in motion, a still point that exists not in opposition to the movement, but underneath it, underneath the grief and the joy and the uncertainty and the longing, holding all of it from below. A person who has found that still point does not describe themselves as above their emotions. They describe themselves as able to be fully in their emotions without being identified with them, without being swept away by them, without needing them to resolve before they can function, because there is a ground that the emotions move on top of, and it is holding steady. That is what I am. That is what you are standing on. And I am inviting you, not someday, not after your spiritual life reaches some threshold of maturity, but right now, with everything you are carrying and everything you are in the middle of, to feel it beneath you. The bedrock was laid before the first heartbreak. It holds every version of you that has ever stood on it, and it will hold you all the way home. Amen. If what you heard in this message touched you, if part of you recognized the voice of the one who has been holding you all along, stay with it a moment before returning to the noise. Simply receive. No particular words are needed. No specific emotional state is required, just the willingness to let the truth of the foundation be what it is. Come back to this message whenever the scaffolding trembles. The bedrock will still be here, and so will I. If this reached you, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are held. Stay close. There is always more.